That evening, Jessica was on her way home, still tasting someone else's kiss on her lips, unable to wash away the memory of hot hands lingering on her skin. Everything around her seemed ordinary. The steady glow of streetlights, the calm of the suburbs, her husband's warm voice on the phone. "Will you be home soon?" But inside her, another world had long been alive. A world where every move could lead to exposure, where a single stray message could destroy a life. She did not yet know that the next night everything would change forever, and the secrets that once made her head spin so sweetly would become far too dangerous to hide. But before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you are watching from and what time it is there. It is always interesting to see who has joined us. Now, get comfortable. We are starting. Jessica Foster stood in front of the long mirror in her bedroom, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the thin mint green top over her chest. The material clung to her curves, hugging her slim, athletic waist and highlighting the gentle roundness of her breasts. Medium in size, perky, with a natural, youthful shape. The sports skirt she chose was short, black, and danced around her thighs. Beneath it, she wore soft lace-trimmed light pink panties and a matching bra, both elegant and comfortable, designed to make her feel confident rather than simply exposed. Her legs, long and toned from years of jogging, looked particularly striking with the skirt's cut, and her light blonde hair, perfectly straight and shiny, fell to her shoulders, framing a face with clear blue eyes and delicate lips. She took a deep breath and turned, checking her look from every angle. Everything had to be just right for her first dance class. Downstairs, Tom, her husband, was already setting out his laptop and mug, his face absorbed by morning emails. He looked up with a distracted smile. "Dance class, right?" he asked, not really looking at her, more interested in his phone screen than the way she moved through the kitchen. "Yes, first date, so," Jessica replied, grabbing her bag and keys. She hesitated for a moment, half hoping he would notice her extra care with her appearance. But Tom only nodded and waved her off, already deep into another message. Outside, the warm spring air wrapped her in a gentle embrace as she made her way to the studio. The building was bright, with high windows letting in golden sunlight. Inside, lively music filled the air, Latin rhythms and playful notes that made Jessica's heart skip. There were about a dozen people in the class, most of them couples in their 20s and 30s. She spotted a few other women standing alone, nervously adjusting their skirts. One of them, Catherine, had curly red hair and an easy smile, while another, Sarah, was tall, with deep brown skin and dark, elegant eyes. The instructor, Anthony, was a man in his 40s, fit, with graying hair at his temples, dressed in a deep blue shirt and dark trousers. His presence was reassuring and full of calm confidence. Then Jessica saw him. He stood a little apart, adjusting the sleeves of a tight, white t-shirt that showed off the sculpted lines of his shoulders and arms. His name was Mark. She heard Anthony call out his name as he welcomed everyone. Mark was tall, perhaps 6'2", with a strong athletic body and a relaxed, open posture. His hair was dark, thick and slightly tousled. His skin tanned and his jaw was shaded with a hint of stubble. He wore fitted black trousers and leather shoes that looked almost new. His eyes were deep brown, direct and sincere, with a warmth that made Jessica's cheeks flush for a reason she could not quite explain. When Anthony asked those without partners to pair up, Mark moved straight toward Jessica. "Hi, I'm Mark," he said, offering a friendly, confident smile. "Jessica," she replied, suddenly aware of her heartbeat, of the soft brush of his hand as he took hers in the traditional hold. His palm was warm, his grip gentle but steady. They began with basic steps, Anthony counting the rhythm. Jessica was shy at first, watching her own feet, but Mark's guidance was patient and smooth. She could not help but notice how comfortable it felt to be close to him, how his hand settled lightly on the small of her back, his fingers pressing through the thin fabric of her top, supporting her just enough to let her trust the movement. His cologne was subtle, a clean scent mixed with his own warmth. Around them, the studio buzzed with the energy of learning. People laughing at their own missteps, couples spinning, shoes scuffing across polished wood. Jessica caught her reflection in the mirror. Her cheeks were glowing, her blue eyes sparkling with something she had not felt in a long time. As the lesson moved into the first turns, Mark's body moved in sync with hers, their hips brushing, his thigh glancing against hers with every spin. Jessica felt a shiver run up her spine as his touch lingered just a moment longer than necessary, guiding her gently, his fingertips exploring the curve of her back and waist. During a pause, when Anthony stopped to explain a step, Jessica and Mark found themselves laughing quietly together at a shared mistake. Their eyes met, and for a brief second, the world around them faded, the music growing soft. She saw the way he looked at her lips, and she felt her own breathing deepen. Their hands remained joined, her fingers tracing the back of his hand, marveling at the strength and softness. As the class ended, Anthony gathered everyone for a final dance. Mark led Jessica into the last song, his hand firmly on her hip. "You did great," he whispered, his breath tickling her ear, so close she could feel the heat of his cheek. "Only because I had a good partner," she managed, biting her lip. In that moment, with their bodies so close, Jessica felt an energy she had not known for years. A sense of possibility and excitement, of being truly seen and desired. She felt the promise of something unspoken in the way Mark's thumb traced circles on her waist, and how he held her just a little longer at the end of the music, neither of them wanting to let go. The class disbanded slowly. Jessica collected her bag and jacket, her mind racing, her skin tingling with the memory of Mark's touch. She exchanged numbers with Catherine and Sarah, both of whom were eager to make new friends. Mark caught her eye one last time as he walked to the exit, his smile lingering, and she felt her heart flutter in response. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in pale pink and gold. Jessica walked home, replaying every detail in her mind. The way Mark looked at her, the feeling of his hand on her body, the thrill of dancing so close. She felt both nervous and exhilarated, a new secret tucked away in her heart. That evening, Tom barely noticed when she slipped in, lost in his own world of screens and silence. Jessica took a long shower, letting the water wash over her, her thoughts dancing with new, dangerous possibilities. For the first time in a long while, she felt awake, alive to every sensation, every brush of memory on her skin. She did not know what would come next, but she was sure of one thing. Everything had changed. The week seemed to stretch endlessly for Jessica. Every morning, she found herself daydreaming about that first dance, replaying Mark's every glance, every brush of his fingers against her back. When Thursday finally arrived, she spent nearly an hour choosing her outfit, unable to resist the thrill of anticipation running through her. Tonight, she wanted to feel bold, so she slipped into a tight burgundy crop top with delicate spaghetti straps that framed her shoulders and collarbones, revealing just a hint of the elegant black lace bra underneath. Her skirt was even shorter than last time, a daring black wrap with a subtle slit along one thigh, showcasing her toned legs. Underneath, she chose matching black lace panties, sensual but still comfortable, with thin sides and a low rise that hugged the curve of her hips. Looking in the mirror, Jessica admired the gentle swell of her breasts, beyond the smooth lines of her waist, though the firm, round curve of her bottom. Her hair, washed and freshly styled, shone like silk as it tumbled down her back. Tom barely looked up as she left, muttering something about an evening call. Jessica closed the door quietly behind her, her heart pounding with a delicious, nervous energy. The dance studio was already alive with music and chatter when she arrived. She was greeted warmly by Catherine and Sarah, who exchanged knowing glances as they took in Jessica's confident new look. "Wow, Jess," Catherine grinned, looping her arm through Jessica's. "Someone's ready to steal the spotlight tonight." Jessica blushed but smiled, shrugging off their teasing. "I just want to have fun." As Anthony began the class, Mark was waiting at the far end of the room, a hint of a smile curving his lips. Tonight, he wore a dark red shirt, open at the collar to reveal a sculpted chest. The sleeves rolled up to reveal strong tanned forearms. His black trousers fit snugly, emphasizing his athletic build and narrow waist. His hair was styled with just enough product to look effortlessly tousled. Anthony paired everyone off, and Mark immediately moved to Jessica. When he took her hand, there was an extra electricity in his touch. "You look incredible," he murmured, his eyes lingering on her neckline for just a second longer than usual. "Thank you," Jessica replied, feeling her cheeks grow warm. She noticed how Mark's gaze flicked briefly down her body, a spark of admiration in his eyes. Tonight's lesson was a sensual salsa. The steps were quick and close, the rhythm pulsing through the floor and up through their bodies. Mark's hands rested confidently at her waist, and Jessica found herself leaning into him, letting the music move her. She could feel the heat radiating off his skin, the firmness of his touch. When he spun her, his hand slid lower, just brushing the curve of her hip beneath the skirt, leaving a trail of tingling nerves in its wake. Between songs, Jessica glanced around the room. The other dancers were caught up in their own worlds, but a few of the women, especially Sarah, were watching her with sly smiles, whispering behind their hands. Jessica wondered what they saw, if her feelings were as obvious as they felt. As class wound down, Mark leaned in close. "Would you like to grab a coffee with me after?" he asked, voice soft enough that only she could hear. Jessica hesitated, her heart fluttering. She thought of Tom at home, probably still staring at his laptop. "I'd love to," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper. They left together, passing through the bustling lobby and out into the cool evening air. A block away, they found a small coffee shop with dim lights and quiet corners. Mark ordered for both of them, returning to the table with 2 steaming cups. As they talked, Jessica found herself opening up in ways she had not for years. She told him about her dreams, travel, painting, writing. Mark listened intently, nodding, sometimes reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. In those small, intimate touches, Jessica felt an honesty and attentiveness she had missed for so long. The conversation drifted to relationships. Mark told her he had been single for over a year, after a long, messy breakup. His eyes grew dark, thoughtful, as he described how difficult it had been to trust again. Jessica listened, her fingers unconsciously tracing the rim of her cup. She realized she was sharing things she had never said out loud, even to Tom. Under the table, Mark's hand found hers, his thumb gently stroking her palm. After a few moments, his fingers moved to her knee, slow and tentative, as if giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. Instead, she shifted closer, letting her thigh brush his. Mark's hand slid along the bare skin above her knee, moving upward under the tablecloth, tracing the edge of her skirt, the softness of her inner thigh. Jessica caught her breath, feeling her heartbeat quicken. Their eyes met, and Mark's gaze dropped to her lips. For a long moment, they simply watched each other, the world fading around them. His hand squeezed her thigh gently, his thumb drawing tiny circles on her skin. Jessica shivered, a warm flush spreading through her body, and she did not move away. The touch was intimate, electric, full of promise and risk. They lingered in the coffee shop until closing time, lost in each other. When they finally stood to leave, Jessica felt a little dizzy, her body tingling with anticipation. They walked together in silence, Mark's hand occasionally brushing her arm. At her car, Mark stopped, turning to face her. "I really like you, Jessica," he said quietly. "This feels different." Jessica looked up into his deep brown eyes, her heart racing. "I like you too," she whispered, letting her hand rest against his chest. She felt the steady thud of his heart, matching her own. Mark leaned in and pressed his lips softly to her forehead, a gesture full of tenderness. "Good night," he whispered. Jessica watched him walk away, the memory of his touch still burning on her skin. At home, Tom was already asleep, the television flickering quietly in the darkened living room. Jessica undressed in the bathroom, running her fingers lightly over her thighs, recalling the pressure of Mark's hand. She gazed at her reflection, seeing something new in her eyes. A glow, a secret. She slipped into bed beside Tom, careful not to wake him. For a long time she stared at the ceiling, feeling the delicious weight of what had happened and what might still come. The next day, Jessica's phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "Thank you for last night. I keep thinking about your smile." A rush of joy and nerves filled her. She typed back quickly, "I keep thinking about your touch." At work, Jessica caught herself smiling at nothing, her mind replaying every moment. When she arrived at the next class, Sarah gave her a knowing look. "You and Mark, huh?" Jessica laughed, brushing off the comment. But the thrill was unmistakable. As Anthony led them through more intricate moves, Mark was by her side, his hand lingering at her waist. The unspoken connection between them had only grown stronger. When he spun her, his palm slid across her bare lower back, just under the hem of her top, making her catch her breath. In one quiet moment, as they waited for the music to start, Mark leaned in close, his lips grazing Jessica's ear. "I want to see you again, alone," he whispered. Jessica turned to face him, her face just inches from his. For a second, she let herself imagine it, what it would feel like to surrender to his touch completely. "I want that too," she breathed. As they danced, their bodies pressed together more intimately than before. Mark's thigh pressing between hers, Jessica's hands exploring the strength of his arms. Each touch, each glance felt like a secret. When the class ended, Jessica left with Mark's hand lingering at the small of her back, the promise of more lingering between them. Catherine and Sarah exchanged glances, but said nothing. That night, Jessica lay awake, her mind racing. The lines of her life felt blurred, her loyalties tested. Yet, beneath the worry, there was a growing sense of freedom, a taste of temptation she could not resist. By the time a month had passed, Jessica's life had quietly but unmistakably changed. Her days still began with the ordinary: coffee brewing, Tom's routine footsteps, the predictable scroll of morning news. But her mind was filled with anticipation for every evening dance class. The world outside her home felt vibrant, full of hidden color and possibility, and she carried that spark in her eyes even when she tried to hide it. That Thursday, Jessica chose a new outfit for the special theme night at the studio: red and black. She wore a form-fitting cherry red top with a plunging neckline, delicate straps crossing over her bare shoulders, and a sleek black pencil skirt that ended just above her knees, hugging her hips and accentuating the rounded shape of her backside. Underneath, she slipped into a scarlet lace bra that gave her breasts an uplifted, rounded look, and matching panties, soft, barely there, and cut high on her hips to flatter her legs. Her hair she styled in loose, glossy waves, and a touch of red lipstick completed the look. Tom was unusually quiet at breakfast, barely glancing at Jessica as he sipped his coffee. "Going out again tonight?" he asked flatly. Jessica nodded, her heart skipping. "There's a themed class. Just dancing like always." He grunted, eyes glued to his screen, and Jessica felt a pang of guilt, so faint it vanished almost as soon as it arose. At the studio, the atmosphere was electric. Red and black decorations hung along the mirrors. A few new faces appeared. A lively couple, Becky and John, who introduced themselves with wide smiles and a gentle southern twang, and a few more men who eyed Jessica appreciatively. Catherine, in a flirty red dress, greeted her with a hug. Sarah, tall and regal in a simple black top, winked at her knowingly. "You look amazing, Jess. Mark's going to lose his mind," Sarah teased. Mark was already there, leaning against the bar, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw Jessica. Tonight, he wore a crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the fabric hugging his torso. The dark color made his brown eyes look deeper, more intense. He moved to her with an easy confidence, taking her hand. "You're stunning," he said quietly, squeezing her fingers. Jessica smiled, her cheeks glowing. The class was tango, a dance that demanded intensity and intimacy. As Anthony demonstrated the moves, Jessica and Mark took their positions, their bodies pressed close from the very first step. The beat of the music echoed in Jessica's chest, her body responding to every cue Mark gave, every shift in his stance. As they moved together, Mark's hand pressed firmly against the small of Jessica's back, guiding her through turns. His thigh slid between hers, and with every pivot their bodies brushed, her skirt rising slightly, the heat of his touch burning through the fabric. Jessica felt her breath hitch as Mark's fingertips traced patterns on her bare shoulder, drawing invisible lines that lingered on her skin. With each dramatic pause, their faces were so close that Jessica could count the flecks of gold in Mark's eyes, could feel his breath warm on her lips. The dance felt less like choreography and more like a confession, silent, desperate, and full of longing. Between songs, the couples mingled. Jessica noticed Becky, the new woman, casting admiring glances at Mark. There was an edge of jealousy, sharp and unexpected, that flickered through Jessica. Mark, for his part, seemed to notice nothing but her, his attention unwavering. The evening pressed on, the air thick with music and laughter. At the break, as Jessica waited in the hallway to catch her breath, Mark appeared beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. He leaned in, his lips just grazing her ear. "I need to kiss you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with want. Jessica turned, her heart thundering, and let her lips find his. Their kiss was slow at first, a delicate exploration, but it quickly grew hungry. Mark's hand slid down her arms, then gripped her waist, pulling her flush against him. Jessica felt his body, strong and solid, pressing her back gently against the wall. His lips traveled to her neck, kissing the soft skin just below her ear. Her hands tangled in his hair, tugging him closer, her body arching to meet his. Mark's hands traveled lower, caressing the curve of her hips, his palms gliding down the back of her skirt to cup the roundness of her bottom. Jessica gasped quietly, desire racing through her veins. His fingers traced the line where her skirt met her thigh, the edge of lace just visible. For a moment, she forgot everything else, the hallway, the class, even the risk. All that mattered was Mark's touch, the taste of his lips, the raw, aching need that filled the space between them. Suddenly, Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Jessica pulled away, her breath coming fast, her lips swollen from the intensity of their kiss. She turned just as Catherine appeared around the corner, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." Catherine's voice was light, but there was a curious lingering note in her gaze. She smiled, gave Jessica's arm a gentle squeeze, and slipped past them toward the studio. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest. She and Mark exchanged a look, half guilt, half exhilaration. "That was close," Mark murmured, his hand brushing her cheek. Jessica nodded, smoothing her hair, her cheeks blazing. "We need to be careful." The rest of the class passed in a blur. Every gay glance from Catherine felt loaded. Every touch from Mark felt electric. Jessica's skin buzzed with adrenaline, a new awareness of risk twisting through her excitement. Later that night, Jessica returned home late. Tom was awake, sitting on the couch, the television playing in the background. "You're late," he said, not taking his eyes off the screen. "There was a little party after class," Jessica lied, her voice steady. Tom only nodded, but the look he gave her was hard to read. In the quiet of the bathroom, Jessica stared at herself in the mirror. She could still feel Mark's hands on her body, the taste of his lips on hers. But there was something else now, a thrill tinged with fear. The shock of almost being caught lingered, a reminder of the line she had crossed. Her phone buzzed. "I can't stop thinking about you," Mark had written. "Me neither," she replied, her fingers trembling as she hit send. The next dance class brought new tension. Jessica felt the room buzzing with whispers. Were people talking about her and Mark? She noticed Sarah and Catherine exchanging glances, saw Becky's open admiration for Mark. The air was thick with speculation. Anthony announced that they would change partners throughout the class. For a while, Jessica found herself paired with John, Becky's boyfriend, a broad-shouldered, kind-eyed man who seemed oblivious to the drama. Becky danced with Mark for one song, their bodies moving in perfect sync. Jessica felt a pang of something sharp and unfamiliar, a mix of jealousy, fear, and regret. After the lesson, as people gathered their things, Becky approached Jessica, her tone light but pointed. "You and Mark make a beautiful pair," she said, smiling sweetly. "You must really trust each other." Jessica managed a polite response, but Becky's words lingered in her mind. Was it a compliment or something else? On her way out, Catherine caught up to her. "Jess, can I talk to you for a second?" Jessica nodded, her stomach tightening. They stepped outside into the cool night air. I want to make sure you are okay," Catherine said, her eyes searching Jessica's. "You seem different lately. I know something's going on with you and Mark. Just be careful, okay?" Jessica nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "Thank you," she managed. "I will." As she walked to her car, Jessica's mind raced. She felt exposed, the walls of her secret world beginning to crack. The thrill of passion now carried the risk of discovery, a shock to her system that she could not ignore. That night, As she lay awake beside Tom, Jessica realized how far she had traveled from the life she once knew. The shock of nearly being caught, of Catherine's concern, and Becky's veiled comments all swirled inside her. But even as doubt and worry pressed in, she could not let go of the fire Mark had lit inside her. The line between desire and danger had blurred, and Jessica knew there was no turning back. Jessica awoke the next morning with a heavy feeling in her chest, a tension that would not dissolve, no matter how she tried to shake it. The memory of Mark's hands lingered on her skin, their passion still fresh in her mind. But now it was tinged with uncertainty, the shock of nearly being caught, of Catherine's quiet concern, and Becky's probing words pressed at her thoughts, making her question every decision. The familiar routine of breakfast with Tom felt strained, the silence between them more loaded than ever. Tom barely looked up from his phone, sipping his coffee as if nothing had changed. Jessica studied his face, searching for any sign that he suspected, but found nothing except exhaustion and distance. At work, Jessica found herself distracted. She caught her reflection in the window, a woman who just weeks before had lived a simple life, now transformed by secrets. Her mind wandered through memories, the brush of Mark's lips, the electricity in every hidden touch, the risk of exposure. With every message from Mark, her heart fluttered, but so did a nagging sense of unease. "I miss you," he wrote one afternoon, the words making her smile despite herself. "Tonight?" she replied, barely able to focus on her tasks. That evening, Jessica dressed with special care. She chose a soft lavender blouse with a deep neckline, a flowing skirt that danced around her knees, and pale blue lace lingerie, delicate, comfortable, yet seductive. The bra lifted her breasts, round and inviting, while the panties hugged her hips, the lace barely visible under the skirt. Her golden hair was swept into loose waves, and a subtle perfume clung to her skin. Mark was waiting for her outside the studio, leaning against his dark sedan, dressed in a slate grey button-down shirt and dark jeans that hugged his athletic frame. His dark hair was slightly messy, his eyes warm with anticipation as he greeted her. "Beautiful as always," he murmured, brushing a strand of hair from her face. They slipped away from the studio before class began, weaving through the city's quiet evening streets, until they reached a small apartment Mark sometimes borrowed from a friend. A secret, a sanctuary away from prying eyes. The room was modest but cozy, with a wide bed, soft golden light, and windows overlooking the distant city. As soon as the door closed behind them, Mark drew Jessica into his arms, kissing her deeply. His hands caressed her sides, gliding over the smooth fabric of her blouse, before slowly unbuttoning it, revealing the delicate blue lace beneath. Jessica gasped as his lips traced the curve of her neck, his fingers sliding the blouse from her shoulders. His hands explored her body, gently tracing the swell of her breasts, the firmness of her waist, the soft fullness of her hips. She responded with growing urgency, her own hands moving under his shirt, exploring the warmth of his skin and the strength of his muscles. They moved to the bed, tangled in each other's arms. Mark's lips traveled from her mouth to her collarbone, down to her chest, worshipping her with every touch. Jessica arched beneath him, her body singing with pleasure. The delicate lace of her bra soon slipped away, and Mark cupped her breasts, his thumbs circling her sensitive skin, drawing soft moans from her lips. His hand slid down beneath the waistband of her panties, his fingers exploring the soft curves of her body, sending waves of heat through her. They moved together slowly, tenderly, their bodies fitting perfectly. Every kiss, every caress was both a promise and a question. How far would they dare to go, and what secrets would be left behind? Afterward, they lay in the quiet, Mark's arms wrapped around her. Jessica stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding, her mind full of questions she could not voice. "Do you ever feel guilty?" she whispered at last. Mark hesitated. "Sometimes, but with you, it feels right, like I finally found someone who sees me." Jessica's eyes filled with tears she did not let fall. "I wish things were simpler," she murmured. For a moment, Mark was silent, holding her tighter. Back at home, Jessica noticed subtle changes. Tom was quieter than usual, sometimes watching her with a strange intensity. He no longer asked about her dance classes, and more than once, she caught him looking through her phone when he thought she was not watching. Jessica began to feel eyes on her everywhere. At the studio, at work, even in the grocery store. She wondered if she was imagining it, or if someone truly knew her secret. At the next class, Jessica sensed the air had shifted. Sarah and Catherine's laughter sounded brittle, their conversations suddenly stopping when she approached. Becky was all smiles and friendliness, but her eyes seemed to study Jessica with new curiosity. Even Anthony, usually so cheerful, cast her an odd glance as she took her place. The lesson went on, but Jessica felt exposed. Each step, each spin, every brush of Mark's hand against hers was filled with tension. She noticed whispers among the group, eyes darting her way. Something was off. During a break, Jessica checked her phone and found a message from an unknown number. Careful. Secrets never stay hidden for long. Her hands trembled as she tucked the phone away, forcing herself to smile and rejoin the group. The rest of the lesson passed in a blur, her mind racing with suspicion. Who could have sent the message? Did someone see her with Mark? Was it Catherine, Sarah, Becky, or, terrifyingly, Tom? After class, Mark walked her to her car, his concern evident. "You're quiet tonight? Everything okay?" Jessica forced a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long week." Mark kissed her gently. "You know where to find me if you need me." She drove home through city lights and shadows, her heart pounding, every headlight in her rearview mirror feeling like an accusation. Inside, Tom was already asleep. Jessica stood in the darkness of their bedroom, watching him, wondering what he truly knew. The following day, Jessica's anxiety only grew. She tried to act normal at work, but she jumped at every email, every phone call. She caught herself glancing over her shoulder, wondering if someone was watching. She texted Mark for comfort, But even his reassurances could not soothe the feeling that the walls were closing in. Catherine invited her out for coffee that afternoon. Jessica hesitated but agreed, hoping to clear the air. They met at a cozy cafe, sunlight streaming through tall windows. Catherine stirred her drink, her gaze soft but serious. "Jess, I'm not trying to pry. I just want to help. Are you happy?" Jessica hesitated, searching her friend's face for judgment, but finding only concern. "I don't know anymore," she admitted quietly. Catherine reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "I'm here if you need me, for anything." Jessica blinked back tears. "Thank you." On her way home, Jessica received another anonymous message. "You can't keep hiding forever. He deserves to know the truth." That night, Jessica lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the city outside her window full of secrets and shadows. The mystery of who was watching her, who knew, consumed her thoughts. Was it someone from the studio? One of her friends? Or was it Tom, quietly biding his time, waiting for her to confess? Jessica pressed her hands to her chest, feeling her heart racing beneath her ribs. She knew the secret could not last forever. Sooner or later, the truth would find its way into the light. But for now, all she could do was cling to the moments of happiness Mark gave her and hope that the shadows would not swallow her whole. The sense of unease followed Jessica into every corner of her life. She tried to move through her days as before, greeting Tom in the mornings, sharing small talk with co-workers, keeping up with errands. But the feeling of being watched, of secrets pressed close to the surface, colored everything in new and sharper tones. Even at home, comfort slipped through her fingers. Tom was quieter than ever, sometimes distant, sometimes oddly attentive, his glances lingering a beat too long. Dance class had once been her sanctuary, but now the studio felt different. As Jessica arrived, she caught Sarah and Catherine in quiet conversation, their laughter stopping as soon as she stepped through the door. Becky greeted her with a bright, practiced smile, but there was a sharpness to her gaze that Jessica could not ignore. Even Anthony, usually warm and open, seemed tense. Tonight's lesson was the rumba, a dance slow, intimate, every step a negotiation. Mark was waiting for her, dressed in a charcoal grey shirt and dark jeans, his strong arms folded as he watched her cross the floor. His smile faltered as he studied her face. "You look tired," he murmured when they paired up. Jessica forced a smile. "Rough week, I guess." The music began, and they slipped into the familiar steps. But tonight, every touch was charged, every look heavy with things unsaid. Mark's hand rested lightly at the base of her spine, his thumb stroking gentle circles. Jessica's fingers tightened around his shoulder, holding on as if she might otherwise float away. As they moved, the tension between them found its own expression. Mark's hand exploring the curve of Jessica's back beneath her shirt, his touch lingering at the waistband of her skirt. Jessica pressed into him, her body molding to his as the music slowed. Their faces so close, she could feel the whisper of his breath on her cheek. His thigh slipped between hers, their hips swaying in sync. Mark's lips grazed the sensitive shell of her ear, and Jessica shivered, her skin alight with want and worry. They held each other just a little too long, the world around them shrinking to the space between heartbeats. During the break, Jessica stepped out onto the terrace, drawing in deep breaths of cool evening air. She barely noticed Catherine following her until her friend's voice broke the silence. "Jess, is everything all right?" Catherine's face was full of concern. "You seem on edge." Jessica hesitated, weighing the truth against the fear of losing everything. "I think I made a mistake," she whispered at last. Catherine hugged her tightly. "Everyone does. Just be careful. There's been a lot of talk lately. Some people say Tom has been asking questions." Jessica felt her knees weaken. "What did he ask?" "About you, about the studio, about Mark." Catherine's expression was pained. "He's hurting, Jess. He's trying to find out what changed." Inside, the class resumed, but Jessica's mind raced. She tried to focus on the dance, but every glance, every word, seemed full of hidden meaning. Sarah's sidelong looks, Becky's careful politeness, Anthony's wary professionalism. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle closing in. After class, Mark found her in the empty studio. "Jess, I can tell something's wrong. Talk to me." She stared at the polished floor, unable to meet his eyes. "I think Tom knows," she said finally. "Or at least suspects. I keep getting these messages. Anonymous, threatening. Someone's watching us, Mark." Mark's jaw clenched. "Do you want to stop? I'll do whatever you need." Jessica shook her head, tears pricking at her eyes. "I don't know what I want. I can't keep living like this, looking over my shoulder." He took her hands, pressing them to his chest. "You're not alone, Jessica. Whatever happens, I'm here." They held each other, the studio empty and silent around them, the promise of safety bittersweet. When Jessica arrived home, Tom was waiting. The living room was dark, except for the blue glow of the television, his face carved in shadow. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice steady but cold. "Dance class," Jessica answered, hanging her bag by the door. Tom turned off the television. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I know about you and Mark." Tom's voice was quiet, tired, but without anger. "I saw the messages. I know what's been happening." Jessica's breath caught. The room spun. "Tom, He shook his head, holding up a hand. "Just stop. I do not want excuses. I just want the truth. When did it start?" Jessica swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. "A couple of months ago, after the first class. I never meant to hurt you, Tom. I just..." Her voice broke. "I felt invisible, lonely." Tom's expression softened, pain flickering behind his eyes. "Was it my fault?" She stepped forward, taking his hand. "No, maybe both of us let it get this far." They stood in silence, the years of their marriage playing out in unspoken words. Tom's hand squeezed hers, and for the first time in months, Jessica saw the man she had once loved. Not just a stranger behind a phone or a computer screen, but her partner. Over the next days, the fallout echoed through Jessica's world. Tom did not yell or rage, but the silence between them was heavy. At work, Jessica forced herself to focus, but every message from Mark came tinged with guilt. At the studio, the atmosphere had shifted. Some people greeted her with warmth, Catherine, Sarah, while others, like Becky, kept their distance. Mark was patient, careful, never pushing. He respected her space, though his eyes never left her for long. One evening, Mark waited for her outside after class, hands in his pockets. "I can give you space if that's what you need," he said softly. Jessica shook her head. "I do not want space. I want honesty. For the first time, I want to live the truth, even if it hurts." They walked together, side by side, the city humming around them. At home, Jessica and Tom had a long, honest conversation about loneliness, love, disappointment, and unmet needs. There were tears, apologies, anger, but also moments of laughter, fragile as new leaves. They agreed to separate, at least for now, to give each other space to rediscover themselves. There was no screaming, no cruel words, only two people trying to find kindness in the ruins of what they once built. Jessica moved into a small apartment across town, a cozy place with sunlight streaming through big windows and the sound of music from a nearby park. She kept going to dance class, where Mark supported her, not as a savior, but as a friend and, sometimes, something more. She reconnected with Catherine and Sarah, meeting for coffee and late-night talks, finding comfort in their understanding. Even Becky, after a few weeks of silence, reached out, and their friendship slowly began to heal. Jessica's life was not perfect, nor free from pain. But for the first time in years, she felt honest, with herself and with those around her. She learned to move through her days with grace, owning her choices and her faults. Mark remained in her life, not as a secret, but as a partner, their connection deepening now that the shadows had cleared. Together, they explored the city, danced under the stars, and built a relationship on trust and openness. Sometimes, Jessica thought about the past, about what she had lost and what she had found. She knew there would always be moments of doubt, of regret. But as she danced, her body free and her heart light, she understood that she had finally learned how to live in the space between longing and truth.